continue this Halloween Horror Fest marathon. This time we're shifting it over to movies based off of the one and only Stephen King. Yep, he's one of the most well-known and most influential scary book writers of all time. And, well, when it comes to movies, he's had kind of a spotty history. Yeah, he's had some real cheeseball films that were mostly direct-to-TV and, TV spin-off series and so forth. But he's also had a lot of great theatrically released films, and that's obviously the only ones I'm going to be counting. Yep, this is my personal top 5 list of what I think the best Stephen King movies, obviously theatrically released, are. And a few honorable mentions here and there. So, let's get to it, starting with number 5, It. 2017 version, actually. Yes, this is one of the only few occasions where I actually favor the remake over the original, which the original, in case you don't know, is part of a TV miniseries. So, as I said, it has to be theatrically released films, and this one is theatrically released. It was theatrically released last year, around the fall, and surprisingly, it did really good, even after the skepticism I had. And yes, I did like Tim Curry's take on the clown himself, but this one is just, wow, even scarier. I mean, yes, it lacks the campiness that the original TV version had, but this one is, well, a little less messier, and yes, I did include it on my best film list of 2017, because for one thing, it doesn't try to throw too much in there like the TV version did. It spreads it out a little bit more, not to mention it's hinting a sequel, which is supposed to come in the near future. Yep, so this is basically just part 1. Yes, the cast is a little bit Goonie-ish, and yes, there's a little excessive swearing, especially out of kids, and it does go a little far, especially with the, the chubby kid getting knifed in the stomach and everything, so I think that was a little too excessive. But for the most part, I think it was really good, and it has a great theme to it. I'm not going to give too much away. I'm going to try to be a little more spoiler-free on this list, but definitely go see it for yourself. It is a little long, but not nearly as long as the TV version, so, yep, it definitely does surprisingly better. Number 4, Shawshank Redemption. Okay, well, you probably know the story behind this one. In case you don't, well, it's a prison story, obviously. Tim Robbins and Morgan Freeman. Tim Robbins' character is obviously sentenced to life in prison for, well, a crime he did not commit of murdering his wife and her lover. And, well, he obviously meets up with Morgan Freeman's character, who's not sentenced to a life in prison. He obviously is sentenced to a long time in prison for, well, smuggling and money laundering, which he commits inside the prison. And it's a very engaging story as well. It's a bit slow, but for the most part, you really feel the chemistry between these two characters. They definitely have it. Their performances, not much to say. You always can expect a great performance out of Morgan Freeman. And, yeah, it's definitely great. Yeah, the film was kind of a big box office disappointment when it first came out, but that doesn't stop this film from being watchable. It's definitely more than watchable. I mean, you feel for these characters so well in this film, and it's just, the story's great. And, yeah, not much to say there. Go see it for yourself. It's great. Number 3, The Shining. Yep, Stanley Kubrick's masterpiece, which apparently Stephen King, the writer of the story, did not like. Yeah. I'm a bit surprised, because I think it was great. Yeah, Stanley Kubrick is a different kind of director, Sadly, he's been gone for quite a while now, and he directed a lot of great hit films like 2001 Space Odyssey, Full Metal Jacket, and of course this film. And I don't get why he didn't like it. Maybe because the fact that he's more of a slow, to build up suspense type of director. I mean, I'm fine with that. I mean, yeah, not everybody can really take his kind of directing skills, and yes, he was a pretty difficult director to work with from what I've heard. And yes, I know the wife in this film can be rather annoying, but Jack Nicholson, trust me, he just nails it. I mean, he's no stranger to when it comes to roles of psychotic characters. I mean, he was already great pretending to be crazy in the Oscar-winning film One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, and in this film, man, he just goes all out. I mean, it's just insane. He's just insane, to say the least. And of course, you can't forget that infamous scene with the bathrooms. Yeah, Stanley Kubrick's got a trademark for bathrooms from Full Metal Jacket, and of course this film, when he breaks the door open and goes, "Here's Johnny." Yeah. I mean, the blood, all the strange things that happen in this movie, it's just terrific. So, in other words, I don't know why Stephen King doesn't like this adaptation, but I sure do. Yes, it's a little bit long, but what do you expect? It's Stanley Kubrick right there, people. It does a fantastic job. The soundtrack and all the eerie sound effects and everything, it just works perfectly. So what did Stephen King do because he didn't like this? Made his own crappy TV version. Yeah, and trust me, stay away from that one. This is the version you want. It was in theaters for a great reason. Number 2, Carrie. Which version? 1976, obviously. The original classic. Yes, this film has obviously been through many incarnations. There was, of course, a sequel and several remakes, which the most recent one was in 2013, starring Chloe Moretz Grace, which I didn't hate entirely, but at this point, you're just probably ready to say, why? Just seriously. And I have nothing against her. She was great in the Kick-Ass movie, she was great in Hugo, and so forth, but this film, I just feel she wasn't the right kind of character. I think she was just a little too cutesy and good-looking for that role. Now, just think for a second. Just picture a girl that gets tormented in high school by other girls. Does this girl look like that kind of person? Or this one? Yeah, that one looks like the kind of girl that gets tormented and bullied to death. And you probably know the story. You know, she gets tormented, she has an over-religious mother, and of course she has telekinetic powers which she learns to use properly. And yeah, the story is just crazy. It's all about getting revenge, and of course the infamous prom scene that, you know, she goes all crazy, but I shouldn't spoil too much. Just go see it for yourself. The original 76 version, the one that started it all, and it's still a classic even to this day. Sissy Spacek will always be Carrie to me. The original classic Carrie. Alright, well, before I get to number 1, a few honorable mentions obviously are in order. The Green Mile. Yes, another prison story. And, well, again, this one is about a man, colored man out of all things, in a southern state, and obviously it explores racism, so it's pretty historically accurate, you know, because they're all against him, even though the man is partially mentally impaired, but of course possesses healing powers, and as you guessed, is wrongfully accused of murder that he did not commit. Stars Michael Clarke Duncan as, you know, the black man, and he's sadly been gone for many years. I think his performance was great in this film. Tom Hanks and so forth. So, yeah, performances are excellent. And yes, it's a very long film. This one clocks about 3 hours, but damn, you just really feel for these characters so much, especially Michael Clarke Duncan's character. His character is so well portrayed, it's just fantastic, without a question. And a lot of people question why this film was a big hit. Well, go watch it for yourself and you'll see why. Stand By Me. A great coming-of-age film starring, well, a bunch of kids, which half of them are the Goonies cast because it was released in 1986, only 2 years after that film released, and one of them obviously played by the sadly deceased River Phoenix, who died at a rather young age. They go on a 30-mile hike to find nothing more than a dead body. It may sound like not much of a story, but trust me, it really is. It takes place obviously during the summer, they get into a lot of trouble, they tell stories and stuff, like of course one which is rather disgusting and disturbing about an imaginary person named Lardass in a food eating contest, and of course they get into River of Leeches, which is pretty gross. There's a lot of gross situations, but some situations are, well, rather humorous, and it's not rated R for a dumb reason. It does have a lot of swearing, especially out of kids, yeah. Seems like these Stephen King adaptations have a thing for that, don't they? But this one is definitely great. It should not be missed. It should be watched at least once. Definitely should stand by this one. The Dead Zone. A sad but really good thriller movie about a man who obviously gets into a car accident and recovers after a couple of years of being in a coma, played by none other than the strangest actor in Hollywood, at least that most people can agree with, Christopher Walken. And, well, he gets psychic abilities and the ability to predict what's coming. Yes, I know The Simpsons made fun of this with Ned Flanders in one of the Treehouse of Horror episodes, but believe me, this film should not be missed. It may be The Dead Zone, but trust me, this film is anything but dead. Christopher Walken just kills it. I mean, he's terrific. Definitely should watch. And the number 1 best Stephen King adaptation movie, in my opinion, Misery. Yes. Okay, everybody probably knows about this film, and, well, in case you don't, here's the story. James Caan is a writer, and he's set to publish another book, but of course he's caught up in a bad snow and ice storm, which results in a bad car accident, severely injuring himself, and before the police can get to him, of course Kathy Bates' character, who was a nurse, pulls him out of the car and nurses him back to health before the police can even find him, and of course they assume him dead or missing. So, yeah. It seems like a simple plot, but Well, it's not that simple, really, because she's not a nurse and she's not the nicest person. She seems nice at first, but then, as the time goes on, she reveals her true colors, where she goes from a caring, nice person to a rather raging psychopath who just goes absolutely ballistically crazy. I mean, Kathy Bates is the one that really steals the show in this movie. She is fantastic. I mean, she got an Oscar for this performance. I mean, she just goes all out crazy. I think the most cringe-inducing scene that most people have a hard time watching is the part where she sedates him and then puts him on the bed with a log in between his legs and then breaks his leg. I mean, goddamn, that is what you call graphic right there. I mean, well-deserved right there, Oscar performance, and out of all the films that should get a remake, this one should never, ever get remade. I know a lot of Stephen King movies have gotten it. I know It was great, but this one, please, for the love of God, don't remake this one. I mean, Kathy Bates is untouchable. This whole film is untouchable. That's why it's at #1 spot right here. It's gripping. It really keeps you off the edge of your seat, and you just... I couldn't stop watching this film. I mean, it's just terrific. All the performances are great, and that's why, like I said, it's at the #1 spot of best Stephen King adaptation movies. So, till next time, keep watching. We'll continue this Halloween Horror Fest again. See you soon.